Alright, so hey everyone, we have a podcast now for some reason, and I don't know, this is probably a really bad idea, but as you all probably know, I'm Pyrrha, or Liz, and with me I have Hinder,
Hello.
I have Roach,
Hi there.
and I also have Maemae.
Hello!
And if you noticed, all three of them sound really goddamn weird. Roach I have no clue though, because Roach doesn't actually have an accent. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about, RWBY up to this point, and, basically how we got into it. And I guess we'll just go down the list. Hinder, if you want to start this off, how did you get into RWBY? How did you find it? Did anyone introduce it to you?
Absolutely not. No. If I recall correctly, I was watching some Red versus Blue stuff because I was deep into playing Halo at the time. And at the end of one of the videos, there was a trailer for it, and I was like, "There's a tiny little girl with a red hood and a giant massive scythe," and I was like, "It's pretty much down my kink alley." So I ended up basically binge watching the first 2 seasons or something like that, and that's pretty much how I got into it. And I think at the end of the second season, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I can see this is good. This is good. I think it wasn't until the end of the third season where I started joining in with the community stuff and so on and so forth. But that's pretty much how I got into the RWBY scene.
And now, going in, did you have, any expectations for the show? Was this just a thing you were like, I guess I'll watch this? Or did you really have, high hopes for it? And did Volume 1 turn you off at all? Or do you think it only furthered your interest?
Honestly, I watched the first episode, and I was like, okay, this world's pretty dope. Between the Hunter Academies and so on and so forth, and the way she fought, I think it was really the fighting animation that gripped me hard, right? The way she maneuvered herself around the scythe, and also the mild magical combat that was going on between, well, not that I knew at the time, Cinder and Glinda was just really cool. So no expectations at all, really. I think that basically every moment to every moment in the first couple of volumes really took me forward. There was no moment where I was like, okay, now it's gotten silly, or now it's gotten shit. I just remember thinking, okay, that's cool, and this is cool, and this world's cool, and the guns are cool, and the characters are cool, and I just got pulled more and more into it as it went along, to be honest.
Alright, on to next person. Roach, how did you get into RWBY?
I would say just about the same way as Hinder, Red versus Blue, but I watched RWBY through Netflix when it was on Netflix. Well, the first 2 volumes, my bad. And I never watched the trailers. So when Adam showed up, I was thinking, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, and same deal. Did you have any quality expectations? Did you just take it at face value? How did that go for you?
I got hooked onto it the moment Jen Taylor started voicing, at the very beginning of the first episode. It's really hard to say. Blake's reveal really wasn't a surprise for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And finally, we have May. May, how did you get into RWBY?
Alright, I didn't have enough time to, fake a story, so I'm just gonna tell you the real story.
That's fine.
When I was, 12, 11, that was kind of when, Season 1 came out, I guess. I don't really know. But, I was introduced by my weeaboo neighbor. I was a weeaboo too, but, whatever. I was introduced to RWBY through them, and I kind of enjoyed it, but, I think I didn't actually get serious about RWBY until about when Volume 4 just finished, I guess. And I started getting into it more and more, and joining the community.
So you came into the community fairly late in the game then.
Oh yeah, of course.
And what was your thoughts after finishing Volume 1? Because a lot of the reason RWBY is such a hard show and to get into, and why it turns so many people off, is because, if we're being honest, it was mostly money at this point, and while you admire that it's the work of one person, the animation is simply god-awful.
I think what was fun about rewatching RWBY, because I watched it when I was 12, I enjoyed it, but I kind of it's kind of like when you watch an anime for, you rave about it for about a week, and then you, give up, watch something else, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, rewatching RWBY once again, it kind of made me realize that there's so much more that can be added. But yeah, rewatching RWBY once again, kind of like, it gave me, like, it was definitely all about, like, seeing more and seeing the potential that, like, this world had, you know? Like, as a writer, because I, like, write fan fiction.
Yeah.
That's my first plug. But, like, as a fanfic writer, there's so much that you can add to this world that's, like, and that's really amazing to me, I guess.
Right, because the way Monty set up the world, he very much set it up to be friendly for original characters and be friendly for fanfiction writers, because he gives you this formula, but a lot of it is very open-ended.
Mhm. That's kind of like what I see out of it.
Yeah. As for myself, it's actually kind of the same deal as Hinder and Roach. I ended up one of my friends was like talking about Red versus Blue in the hallway like during my sophomore year, and I was like, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh dude, it's this Halo machinima that's been running forever and ever. And I'm like, because at that point I hadn't actually played any of the Halo games yet, but obviously like everyone and their mother knows what Halo is. And I ended up binging like the first 11 or so seasons in like a week or so. And yeah, like basically that week I almost didn't leave my room. But I saw an ad for RWBY, and like don't get me wrong, sci-fi and technology and like the Haloverse, that's all very interesting to me, but like RWBY's elements of fantasy and like the weapons and the characters was to me so much more appealing. And I do remember, like, going into it, I knew that it was a web series, and I didn't have very much expectation. But I do remember, like, after watching the first episode, I was kind of iffy, but people told me to just keep watching, and I did, and I very much, like, appreciate that. And, like, because it's brought me to you guys, it's brought me to where I am now, owning this server, and, like, it's a very enjoyable experience. If I have one thing to say about the show going forward, it's that so much has happened that people are hard to absorb it all. Like, have a hard time absorbing it all, and that's a lot of the reason, like, RWBY has its flaws, is because people can't, like, take in all of it, and there's so much room for development. So, I mean, what do you all think of, like, between volumes 1 and 4, what do you think is the strongest volume? Hinder?
Strongest volume has to be volume 3 for me, and that's purely based on a narrative thing. I would say that basically the story has beats between it being volume 1 for me was very much a setup. Like it was, here are the characters, here's this world, here are some of the movers and shakers, and then here's this concept of a looming threat. And in the second volume we had, okay, here are our main characters, here are their motivations, and here we see them dealing with one aspect of this main threat. And we're also going to throw in some development on the terms of the fact that we can see that this team is low down in the scale of importance. There are more important things. And then volume 3 really for me was the culmination of those previous 2 volumes. Everything sort of ended up tapering back together to those focal points at the end, like some of the more traumatic and dramatic things that happen in that volume. And I think that just purely because of that, purely because, in my opinion, the first 2 volumes were set up and build up, and eventually we get this payout in volume 3. Volume 3 has so much more clout behind it on a very narrative sense, in the sense of fights. And I know that we lost obviously between 2 and 3, and a lot of the fight scenes a lot of people would argue they lost their vim and vigor, and it's easy to see that in some places. Like,
Yeah.
that's fair to say. Like, if I was to say, objectively speaking, like some of the better fights ever in the series happen end of volume 1, end of volume 2, like Neo versus Yang, for example, like some of the best choreography, I'd say. But at the same time, volume 3's fights didn't exactly feel lackluster to me. If I were to quote some, like Pyrrha versus Cinder, a fantastic fight would be up in my like top 10 sort of section.
Yeah.
But yeah, like overall I think volume 3 just kind of you could feel the team had hit a stride at a certain point. Like I think that is really important as well. And as we moved into Volume 4, I think we did lose a little bit of that. Like obviously we moved to a new system of animation, and the backgrounds look fantastic, and the models are so much better. And I love the emotive ears on Blake, like one of my favorite things to come out of Volume 4. But to me, it lost a little something from Volume 3, and not to mention the fact that obviously we had all that payoff for the build up in Volume 3, and now they need to rebuild that back up through 4, 5, maybe 6, I don't know. But yeah, that's my opinion on which volume would be the best volume and why.
Alright, so next we have Roach. What do you think is your strongest / favorite volume?
To be honest, animation-wise, I think that Volume 2 was by far the strongest one. Aesthetically, I would have to say Volume 4, but story-wise, I have to agree with Hinder and say 3.
Yeah, because you do have that variation, and you do have, like, because you can tell, like, after Volume 1, the show, I mean, it was just starting to get popular, and Rooster Teeth decided that, hey, maybe we should fund Monty, and maybe we should, like, put support into this project, so the animation did actually improve drastically.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Though, Volume 3 was by far the hardest hitting, I would say, despite the fact that Volumes 1 and 2 were on Poser Pro before being moved to Maya. There was obviously some choppiness, I would say, in the animation in Volume 3.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it was, like, just runtime-wise, it was so much longer than the other volumes, and you could tell the team at that point was very strained to keep up with, like, the project, and, like, keep up with the expectation. Alright.
An example of that would be Cinder running across those rooftops. Like, that animation was janky as fuck.
Oh my god, it was awful.
It was enough to pull me out of the moment a little bit, which was unfortunate, but, I mean, it's one moment. I can't really fault it for that.
Yeah. And finally, May. What do you think is the strongest volume?
Yeah, like the latest series, the later volumes 3 and 4 are definitely my most favorites. I think for 4 it was the world building, I guess, because we got to see more glimpses of what the world truly was outside of like Beacon Academy, you know. But
yeah.
Other than that, like Volume 3 is definitely the strongest story-wise, I guess. Especially when it came to character arcs. I think that, like, seeing how everybody's affected.
Yeah, seeing all that build up and seeing, like, just where it goes and where that steam is let off. So, personally, I'd say, actually, out of all the volumes, the most recent, Volume 4, has got to be my favorite, just because and I've said this before, like, when Volume 4 has been brought up before, and, like, why people dislike it or like it. I will say that, like, out of all the volumes, like, the most hard-hitting was obviously 3, because in 3 you had Blake getting attacked, you had Yang losing her arm, you had Pyrrha dying and RWBY witnessing the death of Pyrrha, and Jean seeing Pyrrha in her last moments before she went off to fight Cinder, and you have the revelation of the maidens, and you have just all this stuff that goes on, and like...
If I may interject for just a moment, in comparison, it was like going outside from your house, getting mugged, then getting hit by a car. It was
yeah.
Just lay down after lay down before...
It was an emotional roller coaster.
Yes, exactly.
Where the only way was down.
Yeah, really. It was like volumes 1 through like the halfway point of 3 was like the climb on the roller coaster, and then it was just a plummet straight back to Earth.
Absolutely.
But in terms of like overall like favorite volume, I would have to say 4, because in volume 3 you have, it's like a cause and effect thing, right? You have cause, and then in Volume 4, you have the effect. You have Yang laying about at home, missing an arm. Like, when she drops the cup, she jumps, and you see those flashes of PTSD. You have Blake dealing with, like, the decision she's made and, like, the decision to run away. You have Sun following after her. You have Weiss in prison, and you have RWBY dealing with this very emotional loss of her friend and dealing with Jean's inability to cope with that loss. And, like, I feel just in terms of, like, what we get out of the volume, it might certainly not be the strongest, but for me, it's definitely my favorite. And of course, you have the new animation, and the voice actors have made strides. And just, like, actually, this is kind of, like, secondary, but I feel like the soundtrack in Volume 4 was far and away the best.
It's very difficult for me to pick a favorite soundtrack, to be honest. The music for RWBY has always been strength to strength, I think. Like, you can see it in the top of the iTunes charts pretty much every time it comes out for a volume. And yeah, there are some really good songs in Volume 4, but, like, better than Boop and some of the, like, Volume 1, character themes was a really tough choice, like, really tough call to make. Something like that, just, I couldn't even begin to comment. Like, it's too rough.
It was a bit of a hard choice to say that as well, but, like, what with the release of, like, the hard... I'd say, actually, it'd be a tie between Volume 3 and Volume 4, because they both have these emotionally charged songs. Like, in Volume 3, you have Cold and you have Divide, which are two of my favorite songs in the entire soundtrack, but in Volume 4, you have This Life Is Mine, which... Go ahead.
Which is Mirror Mirror Part 3.
Yeah, basically. It is essentially Mirror Mirror Part 3, but you do... in This Life Is Mine, you do have that revelation of Weiss breaking away from the mirror motif as well. She casts that mirror aside, and it's a very hard-hitting song about Weiss and about, like, how she copes. And then you have like, Qrow and his emotions about his life in Bad Luck Charm, which I know everybody sees as, like, silly and edgy, but, like, really, if you take the time and listen to the lyrics of that song, you can definitely feel his quote-unquote pain!
The tease in Volume 4 as well, when they were revealing information as to, like, basically we got the very end of that episode where Tyrion attacks RWBY and the rest of Ranger in the middle of the town.
Yeah.
And, like, Qrow turns up as a bird, and everyone's like, alright, Qrow's semblance is turning into a bird. We've got this fucking nailed down. Like, there's no way it's anything else. And, in the very, like, not next episode, it's the second episode afterwards, where he's like, yes, my semblance is bad luck. I was just there, like, you motherfuckers. Like,
yeah, it was...
well, of all the bait and switches, like, we'll never show them anyone turning into animals ever. Semblances are the only magic powers. Also, so is turning into birds. Turning into birds also magic powers.
That's not a semblance, guys. Qrow turning into a crow is obviously his animality.
Oh god.
He's the faunus, don't you know? His faunus trait is being a bird sometimes.
Faunuses can change into animals now.
No, he's a mimic octopus. His faunus trait is mimicking any animal. There you
go, like you did. I can't remember where. I think it might be on that website, which must not be named because, dear God, like we just had a discussion about that in Maine, and it triggered. Dear God. But you saw that thing a while back where, like, I genuinely believe that Raven is doing the long con here and getting Qrow to believe that, like, when in reality he just has naturally shitty luck, that his semblance is shitty luck instead of the bird thing. And, like, it's just her observing him at various points throughout the series, and then when he reveals it to Ranger, she's just like, you dumb shit.
The very first implication of his bad luck, here are the first words that are the implication. Aw, gee darn it.
Oh yeah,
God.
In the bar when the glass drops. Yeah.
I feel narratively the series has definitely gotten stronger because with the world of remnants and just the show progressing, we've nailed down more what the plot is at this point in the series than what it ever was in Volume 1 or 2. And, like, moving forward, I think there's going to be more of a through line for the plot because in Volume 1 or 2 we had the antagonists in the form of Roman and in Cinder and Mercury and Emerald, but we didn't really know where this was going. And I think right now it's not exactly clear, but you can definitely tell more what direction the show is headed in.
I'm of two minds about this, right? Like, Volume 3 was such a dramatic turnaround for for everything, for the tone, for the plot. As far as I was concerned, what I was getting was a generic anime. I don't want to use the word anime because that'd upset people.
Yeah.
3D cartoon online. Yeah, no, right? But yeah, like, I thought I was just gonna get myself a nice Monster Girl Academy sort of. They beat up monsters and everything's okay at the end of the day. There are some dark moments, but in the end, good prevails. Everyone goes home and has cookies, and nothing bad really ever happens. And that obviously went out the window as soon as like Penny got torn in two. And I was like surprisingly refreshed and shocked at the same time. And now we're at the point where we have to follow this kind of mystic artifact route. And I'm cool with that. Like, that's another thing, like another direction they can go in. But part of me always wants to go back to Beacon Academy, see John and Pyrrha's romance slowly blossom, see like RWBY slowly get to grips with her inability to do anything without a scythe, and like just kind of follow a nice gentler pace. But obviously that's not where we're at anymore. Like, that's not going to happen. And maybe that regret is similar to like reading Romeo and Juliet and hoping that this time like Juliet opens her eyes and says, no bitch, don't stab yourself. Like,
yeah.
And like, it's that same sort of, maybe that's just their writing is good because I have regrets, and at the same time, like, I look at it and think, or maybe this could have happened, maybe that should have happened, and so on and so forth.
I feel like, and we've talked about before what a hallmark of good writing is, and we did decide that like one of the greatest hallmarks of good writing is like a writer's ability to draw you in and later make you say what if, and RWBY has definitely done that with us, and I feel like that's part of the reason why they did introduce Chibi, as opposed to just like, yeah, it's sort of satisfying the fans in the off season and getting us to like not tear them to pieces, but it's if a bit more comedical and maybe crackish. It is satisfying our need for RWBY, but it's also giving us that what if. It's also giving us like, I mean, for me, it was just like, oh, Pyrrha's not dead in this. This is my favorite.
Nothing bad ever happened.
Ever. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that was absolutely a good decision on their part. But switching gears a little, one of the complaints I'm sure we've all heard about the show in general, is the writing. And like, honest to God, a personal opinion, I don't think the writing is absolutely awful. Sure, there's things that could be improved upon, but like, as it is, I'm fine with it. But I don't know. What do you think, May?
What do I think? I think that people tend to like over-exaggerate the horrible about the show. Like, I know that like everybody talks about how each character is an archetype, but like, honestly, I think that like everybody can be like stripped down like to like an archetype. Like, literally, I'm the token chick in this modcast. Like, what?
Yeah, it's so hard when you're writing to like not conform to archetypes and stereotypes, because there are so many of them that already exist that making a character that's truly unique is essentially impossible now.
Well, yeah, I think the important focus should never be, am I being original? It should be, am I doing what I'm doing well? And that's why I was all up for like the generic, hey, this is an anime academy sort of thing. And like, as long as they did it well, or they did it differently, because it was different, the world was different, Grimm are different, the characters were different, the way the weapons worked were different. Like, there were so many differences that it didn't matter to me at that time that, as far as I was concerned, we're heading down this narrow track of a classic academy sort of thing. And like you said, May, with like the archetypes of the characters, like you can call Pyrrha the like archetypal needs to be the hero sort of thing, and John is your archetypal fuck up buffoon comic relief. But at the same time, they developed more than that. They became much more than that. I'm sure they started off as just this kind of archetype, but like Jorn had his arc, excuse the pun, of going from being like just the buffoon to saying, hey, I want to actually be the hero and so on and so forth, and then him realizing that maybe that isn't quite how he should be, and we see him like at the dance just go back to being the lovable buffoon, but at the same time really owning it instead of being afraid of it. And that kind of development and that kind of like, hey, yes, I'm the comedic relief, but I'm gonna fucking own this. I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna wear the dress, I'm gonna make the girl I like smile. Like, that's cool. That was cool. I like that a lot. And yeah, the point is, like, don't be afraid to stick to an archetype, and the show doesn't, but just do what you're doing well and take the time when you can put those twists in to put them in, and it just works. That's my opinion, of course, but that's 100% how I feel about it.
Oh, most definitely. I definitely agree with Hinder on that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. Ooh, I don't feel like any need to elaborate on that, because like Hinder did like all the talking, and I just like plotted down.
Yeah.
I like put down like, everybody's an archetype, and he just like blew it out of the water. Yes, most definitely.
And then, speaking of archetypes, you did mention that Pyrrha was, like, the archetype of, like, the always wants to be the hero. And a lot of people actually have issues with Pyrrha's character because of that. Because a lot of people feel, there are issues with her writing and inconsistencies you notice. Because she states at one point, I believe, that her reason for falling in love with Jean is because he treats her normally, when throughout the show he's actually one of the characters who consistently doesn't treat her normally and consistently like puts her on this pedestal. And basically a lot of people feel that like her only point in the show was basically to be Jean's Gwen Stacy and like give him this emotional weight to make him strive to get better. And I mean, I personally disagree with that, but obviously I have that bias because, as we all know, Pyrrha is my favorite character. But what do you all think of that? Roach?
First off, I like how you said that Pyrrha was basically John's Gwen Stacy, because that's fairly accurate, as Pyrrha was a champion, I would say. You know what I'm talking, right?
The Invincible Girl, yeah.
Yes. Shit, I don't know what to say. Hinder, talk for me. I don't know what to say.
Well, are you trying to say that, like, I know very little about Gwen Stacy as a character, but like as far as I can tell, a lot of people level the sights at Pyrrha as being just a supporting character, a kind of stepping stone for Jorn, if nothing else.
To not just a supporting character, but to support the character.
Yeah,
yeah, entirely. Like a crutch, if you will, for the character's development.
No, the word crutch is a bit of a stretch.
Oh no, sorry. Let me be clear. I don't agree with this concept at all, but I think a lot of people do think this. I don't think that Pyrrha is a crutch. I think Pyrrha has a very well-defined character, and I think that when she says, "I'm in love with you because you treat me normally," what she means is Jorn has no agenda with her whatsoever, apart from the fact that he thinks that she's amazing. Like, and he doesn't just think she's amazing because of the fact that she can fight or she can use her semblance to pick up trains and throw them at people if she really wanted to. Like, he thinks that she's amazing because she's kind and she offered to help him, and like she took his deepest, darkest secret and turned it into something that she could help him with and understood about. And like she was always very, even though she was so far ahead of everyone else, and I don't feel bad about saying that because she always was humble in that as well. And I really like the character as well. Like, I've got a lot of bias here, so I can't really talk too much about it.
I think it's more like, what I believe anyway, is that like Pyrrha is more of like a subversion of Lois Lane, if anything. She's like someone who like doesn't need saving, but like she's someone who doesn't need saving initially, but like reveals slowly that she much like everyone else, is broken. She's down to earth and real about like herself once you get to know her and stuff.
And yeah,
It's
it's
something that I really like about her.
yeah, and I feel like a lot of the belief that she comes simply to supplement Jean's character definitely came more after she died. And of course it would come after she died, because the resolution of her character arc very much made it seem like her only purpose was, because in the end she didn't get anything done. She didn't fulfill the goal of being a maiden, and she got Jean better, of course, but like that seems to be her only purpose other than emotionally driving the other characters. And I feel like people who think that are missing the point of the character, because yes, of course, she does help drive the other characters forward, and she gives them reason to fight on, like to avenge her and like honor her memory, but honestly she also gives them this ideal to aspire to, I feel like, because she is known as that invincible girl.
I mean, up until the end, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, up until the end. I also had another question, which in the past 2 volumes we've gotten a lot, and in terms of world building, and especially in the form of World of Remnants. And a lot of people hate that because they feel the World of Remnants are being used to supplement actual development in the show. And
sorry, there's just one question I saw asked in like the main Nest chat. Capria asked about our least favorite characters, and I think that's a pretty interesting topic to touch upon. I was just wondering if we can fit that in somewhere as well, because I'd be well up for that.
We can save the World of Remnant question for later, definitely.
Sure. Yeah, so like, I mean, I don't want to hog the chat, so like, if anything, anyone got their least favorite characters they want to throw out there first?
Neptune.
Yeah?
Oh, hi, Cheeto.
Hi, how's it going?
But...
Can I just say all of Team Cardinal, please?
Well,
They
the obvious
exist
choice.
for the sole purpose of being dicks. Like, there's nothing else.
They're unredeemable.
They had every opportunity for a redeemable factor, but...
I feel like if the episodes were longer, we might have gotten a little bit of development out of them, but they were clearly just put in as a plot device, so... You know.
Hello, Cheeto.
Yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, this is one of the 3 other admins of the Nest, a Zesty Cheeto. So, hello. Honest to God, like, implementation-wise, I feel like, don't get me wrong, I love him to death, and he's an amazing character, but, like, his implementation had basically no purpose. At the point in the show we saw him was Roman. Story-wise, I feel like he doesn't add very much to the show, and his role as an antagonist was essentially just overwritten by Cinder and Adam.
But he was definitely a fun character, but like he was somewhat useless when it came to like Salem, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like his motive literally feels like the trope for the evils, you know? He doesn't have any clear defined motive with what we're given.
Yeah, sorry, just to go back to the Cardinal thing, like, I think Cardinal's biggest problem was the fact that they were used to illustrate something that was supposed to be much better illustrated. And that's like, the Faunus racism that we're told exists but we don't see a lot of, and that's one thing I wish that we would see more of. And as far as like Cardinal goes for moments, we only ever actually see Cardin be a dick, right? Like Dove and Sky and Lark actually seem fairly chill, right? Like they seem overshadowed by their leader. And I believe like the only other moment I can think of is the battle between Penny and those two and them clinging onto a rock. Like it's just kind of like they don't get a lot of opportunity, and they're portrayed
more as like pawns almost, like they scatter without the leader.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Lilo and Stitch, but there's a girl called Myrtle. She just has two girls that follow around all the time, and every time she says something, the two girls behind go, yeah! That's basically the entirety of the rest of Cardinal's contribution to the plot, only they don't actually get the line. They get to stand behind him and get hit by maces.
Yeah. And a lot of...
There was that one time he says, that was one big Ursa, and then he runs away, and then you never
there it is. There's that line.
I totally and completely forgot what I was going to say. Oh!
You were talking about Roman as a character. I'm guessing that Roman's your least favorite character, or is this just...
No. I feel like in the writing of the show, he's one of the least important characters, but no, my least favorite character has to be... I'd say probably Neon Cat. I can't stand her as a character. I feel like she's the token, like, Genki girl, you know? Like, the energetic character who's very bright and very vivid, but other than competing in the tournament, I feel like she serves little to no purpose.
But here's the thing, despite her being the, you know, as you said before, the Genki girl, or however you said it, you have to remember, she's still at Legion. She provided... what the fuck? Why the fuck did I say provide? She implemented at Legion like a divide and conquer strategy, despite you know, their lack of formal appearance.
That is very much true.
Not to mention the fact they introduced the fact that not all Atlesians are hard up assholes. Like Weiss was very snooty, Winter was very snooty. Ironwood was pretty, like, up until that point, every image of Atlas we'd seen was uniform, the color white, being hard up and being incredibly strict and to the rule. And even, like, Weiss was like, okay, they're going to be, like, these extremely highly trained professional. And then we got a dude with a trumpet and a girl that uses roller skates and glow stick nunchucks. Like, it was a very good way of illustrating the fact that the portrayal of Atlas we've had so far isn't indicative of the nation as a whole.
Just from that implication, though, that Weiss had thought that they were going to be, how would I say, like, formal and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
From that implication, it could be said that Weiss has never actually been to the Athletian academies.
I'd 100% agree.
Or even just the fact that, like, Neon Cat and Flint are just minorities, even. Like, that could be
possible.
A possibility, I guess.
But I would picture Weiss is like your typical girl in an ivory tower sort of character, right? Like, she definitely does feel somewhat secluded or sheltered.
And she's supposed to be that with what we're given, like, especially in, like, Volume 4. If she's lived her life, like, the way up to her entering Beacon, like she lived her life in Volume 4, I feel like it very much makes sense for her to be snooty and for her to be uptight and, like, not know what's going on around her, because she doesn't. There's no exposure for her there. There's no way for her to know what any other people in Atlas are like, except for the high society at the parties she attends. Moving forward, I had something...
Roach is your favorite character, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite character?
Least. Opposite of favorite.
Least favorite character. Oh, man, that's a tough one. They're all so good, except I want to say Team Cardinal, but that's already a given. Oh, man, they're all good. I don't know what to say.
In which case, I think Cardinal is your fair answer, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, just because someone else has said it doesn't mean...
Yeah.
It's fair to say as well, though, that you don't... Like, even the antagonists, if not likable, you're interested in them. So, it's easy in a show like RWBY, where every character has such a unique design and unique origin. It's easy to say that every character at least interests you if you can't dislike them.
Oh, Whiteley!
Whitley, yes, Whitley.
See, the problem, right, like, I've been sat here thinking about my least favorite character, and my mind was drawn to Whitley and Jacques, or whatever you want to say, Jacques. And Whitley is one of those characters you're supposed to hate. So at the moment where I think, I hate him, I just think, well, fuck, he's a good character. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, if he gets his mother to kill his father and takes over the Shanidas company, like, he's the best character ever. and that's the most awful thing I can think of him doing. So that can't be my answer. That can't be correct. And I don't dislike Cardinal just because I feel like they were more of a plot device than a character. Like, I feel like you could replace Cardinal with basically a giant sign that says bullying and just kind of wave it around a little bit and you get the same general effect. So if I was to pick a character that I haven't really enjoyed seeing a lot of, it would be surprisingly Emerald. And Emerald, again, gets that same kind of feeling. Emerald is a vehicle for plot. If you think about it, like, Emerald basically has a semblance that allows her to do things that the plot entirely required at the times that it did. Emerald was required for the takedown of Amber. Emerald was required for the entire plot to do with Yang's fight. She was required for Penny's fight. Like, she was just so intrinsically valuable that without Emerald, none of the plans that they made could have ever come to fruition. Like, wow, what the fuck? And then for them to go ahead and say, okay, this is Emerald's value, right? She's the bad guy that thinks that she did something wrong at the end. And I'm just like, if she got that fucking far into this plan, thinking that, like, Vale was going to fall, what was she doing stood on that rooftop looking slightly aghast? Like, seriously, you helped half murder a chick and steal her magical powers. You helped get a girl cut in half. You helped have Yang publicly disgraced for breaking a person's leg that doesn't have a leg. Like, all these things were already so horrible, and then standing on a rooftop while the things that you've been planning to do to get the thing to occur, like, you were moving towards this the whole time. Like, huh? It feels like a cop-out, like they were trying to go, oh, here's some character, by the way.
Yeah, and on top of that, not only that is she a living plot device who suddenly regrets her role in the plot. In Volume 4, we're given this delivery of her. She's been reduced. She's Cinder's translator now, and that's essentially it. That's all she does for most of the volume, and I feel Mercury's even worse. We see so little of Mercury in this volume, I feel it's almost insulting to him as a character. Because if there was ever a character that's a smug bastard, that's Mercury. Like, you see him in the hall when he and RWBY pass in the hall in the stadium, and you see him after the fight with Yang, and just, like, his entire character revolves around being a smug bastard, and we don't see any of that in this latest volume.
In Volume 4, well, I do like the volume. They could have at least done, like, a scene where Cinder and Mercury are alone, like, trying... no, not Cinder. Emerald and Mercury are going over the whole situation that they were currently in. They were quite literally pawns amongst a whole set of much larger pawns.
This is kind of just a theory, but I think that Season 4 is going to be, like, Season 1 to what, like, it was basically Volume 1 to what, like, Volume 2 and 3 were. It was kind of just a build-up to something, I guess.
I think that's a really good call, especially if you consider the fact the first episode of Volume 4 literally references the first episode of Volume 1.
And they boxed up the first 3 volumes like it was the first arc of a story, almost. Like they were starting a new thing in Volume 4.
I do just want to go back and say that in chat, Roltz has rightly pointed out the fact that, like, there's a difference between, going back to Emerald just briefly, like, there's a difference between plotting mass murder and witnessing the mass murder get played out, and there were some really cool interactions in Volume 2 with her and, like, Mercury and, like, the boot sniffing thing in Volume 3. Like, there were a few little quirky things, and I think maybe I'm overridden by the fact that her semblance is so key to the plot, and I maybe got a bit of tunnel vision there, but at the same time I still don't change my opinion on that being my least favorite character purely for that reason. But yeah, it's true, there is a bit more character than I made out to be in my assessment.
Moving forward, I had something about... in Volume 4, we're introduced to so many new characters. We're introduced to, like, 3 of the 4 main people on Salem's team, and we're quote-unquote team. Yeah, we have Watts, Hazel, and Tyrion. And we're also we see more of Raven, and we get her discussion with Qrow, and we get the introduction of Oscar, and like the revelation that Oz is not dead. And starting off with that first bit, what did you guys think of the new villains? Personally, I thought we didn't see enough of them.
To be
Tyrion
honest,
grew on me, pretty much, like, I'd say.
like
Tyrion's
volume
token
3,
crazy.
volume 3 was the introduction of Cinder. Volume 4 may have been the introduction of Tyrion, because to be honest, goddamn, Tyrion gives off like a whole like set of Cicero vibes.
Yeah, he is very much Cicero. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, Cicero is the one like completely fucking crazy jester from Skyrim.
Yes. As for eventually Volume 5, when it comes out, I have a feeling that it'll introduce, well, depending on which is first, Ruby or Blake. It would be either Watts with Professor Lionheart or Hazel going to Menagerie.
I feel like narratively, because Hazel and Oscar had that interaction, that, I mean, for me at the time was very like, oh my god, what if he finds out? He's gonna fucking kill this kid. But, I feel like it'll definitely lean more towards Hazel and his introduction.
And another note, Hazel doesn't seem like a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, he helped the kid out, gave him like a lesson on don't let obstacles get in your way. I feel like he's not in it for greed or power. If anything, Osmond had implied that that Hazel is from his past. I feel like it's more something personal rather than just outside wants.
There's history there. Like, you can clearly tell from the type of very stoic and silent character that Hazel is. He's not a bad guy, but something has happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, characters like that, villains that have a reason and aren't necessarily villains, depending on which way you look at it, are the number one way to get me like going, like 100%. I love a good villain with a good motive. It's so good. And Hazel strikes me as being probably one of the best motivated. Like, Tyrion's motivation so far seems to be some sort of mother issue or mummy issue directed towards Salem.
Yeah.
And that's cool and all, like, and I love the generic laughter that comes with... He's just such a bundle of joy, like, he giggles all the time that you can't be mad at Tyrion.
And his poetic prose that he uses.
It's
like,
so flowery.
When he meets Ranger. Yeah, it's flowery, it's Shakespearean.
Honestly, I'd go for a drink with Tyrion just to watch him tear the eyelids off of someone else at the bar.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, like, my biggest issue, and this is more of like a personal thing, I think, was like, I was hoping Tyrion would kick the shit out of Qrow. I was hoping that Tyrion would like lay down a beat down, and Qrow kind of handily won that fight. And I would have been so happy if we established like the threat of which, the threat of which being an actual big time issue, because Qrow is by and large the strongest character we've ever seen. If Tyrion had come out of the woodworks and just laid into him, I would have been like, okay, these people are big fucking news, right? They're a problem and they need to be dealt with. But with Qrow kind of just walking up to him and punching me in the face, sorry, someone, like, as far as I'm concerned, Qrow won that fight so easily. Like, the only reason there was ever a problem was the fact RWBY was trying to make it her own issue, right? Like, he loses his weapon to Tyrion, walks up to him and just punches the dude.
Yeah, that bit where he shrugs, like, smirks, and then...
Yeah.
I mean, I'd get punched in the face too if I decided to be stupid and look away while simultaneously blocking bullets just so I can make myself look cool.
May, I feel like you've been trying to say something for a while now. Go ahead.
No, I haven't been saying much. I just wanted to say, like, Hazel gets Tinder going. That's all I wanted to say.
I like a big, strong guy.
I
Don't
ship
worry
it
about
now. I ship it. I really do.
Oh god. That's another thing about this fandom. Oh god, the ships. It's so hard to get. You get so invested in them.
You can't go a meter in without like seeing like a ship. Like you see like I think one of the most famous, like the most popular ones at the moment are like Bumblebee, I guess.
White
That's
Rose
one I
as well.
see a lot of.
And yeah, from like
I'm
a
gonna upset a lot of people. Oh no.
Oh, yeah, if we state our opinions on, like, certain ships, like, there's no doubt if we ever publish this thing, which I will, I'll find some place to put this.
YouTube.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
But if we do put this somewhere, and if we shit on any ship at all, I'm sure there will be people coming for us with, like, pikes. But,
The torches and the pitchforks.
I just want everyone to let everyone know that the official Crow's Nest stance on ships is that Dogs of War is the best ship. and for anyone who doesn't know, that's Ironwood and Zwei. So,
God
but,
fucking damn it.
You
I
really
guess
think
I would like to play fetch with his Ironwood. Is that what you're trying to say?
I've got a bone for you, doggy.
There you go.
Ironwood by name, Ironwood by reputation.
Oh god. In any case, what did you guys... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I'm fairly indifferent about any ship in the community. I think that like if not dumb, they all have like the least base in like
they're very contrived.
I guess
When it comes to
it's
shipping,
very based in headcanon, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, there's only one reason for a ship to exist, and that is I want to see these two people dating. That's not a bad reason, but it's all you've really got. Like, and yeah, you can take evidence from the show, but until the two characters start dating, that's all you've got. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't ever look down on anyone for any ship. If people want to ship Sun and Lamppost, he hung from one time. I understand it. They were very close. Like, go ahead, like, ship it. But I don't look down on other people's ships, and don't argue over the fact ships are stupid. And please don't tell me that Sun is a horrible boyfriend and doesn't deserve Blake. Just stop doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm cool with any ship. Just like don't shit on other people's boats.
Yeah.
Even
But,
though it's got a poop deck, I understand. It's confusing.
You can ship it. I just won't agree with you.
Yeah. And moving forward,
yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people seem to like Oscar as a character, and I certainly do. I feel like, in terms of believability, he is so far one of the most believable characters we've seen, because he's just normal.
Unsure, very unsure.
He's not a huntsman, and he's not in training to be one of these elite fighters that defends the world. He is literally just a farm boy with a somewhat similar name. But I don't know, what do you guys think?
Too, if I had like an old guy inside of me.
Yeah. Suddenly hearing a voice like going like, oh hey, you should go someplace you've never been before and meet this guy that may or may not exist. I'd be questioning my health at that point, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But like I feel like as a character he's definitely very interesting, and like he's definitely something I would want to see more of.
My opinion on Oscar so far is that it entirely depends on what Rooster Teeth decide to do with him. Like, if he ends up just being some sort of, like, Ozpin replacement sort of thing, and, like, they kind of have to go through the whole teething period and that kind of thing. I mean, this is, again, my personal opinion, that, like, if they were to do something a bit more sinister with him, like, Ozpin slowly taking over Oscar's body, and, like, when they do the mind merge, Oscar is gone, and it's only Ozpin, and we're like, okay, so what the fuck happened to Oscar's consciousness? Like, this is a bit grimdark. That would be amazing. I'd be
it would less. I would prefer if it would be less like a takeover and more like a complete mind melding. Like not just like one becoming the other, but like
they
both
become
becoming one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as it is, we don't actually like. Come on, it's almost confirmed, but I personally like to believe that Ozpin is, like, not actually dead. Like, because you only see a very small portion of his fight with Cinder, and it's very much implied that he died, but you don't know. He could have some crazy-ass power where he projects his consciousness onto someone else. But
I'd like to say it's somewhere down the middle. He definitely died in that fight, but yeah, his semblance is definitely something to do with carrying on. And I think that ties into what said. Like, said that his semblance was a game-changing sort of, like, overpowered OP semblance thing. And that would make sense, right? Like, if his semblance was essentially he doesn't die, he just moves into a new body, that's kind of strong. It's kind of powerful. It's kind of game-changing.
Of course, because of course we did see her for the first time in Volume 3, but we saw more of her. What do you guys think of Salem? Because I personally think she's a very strong main villain, and she has me curious because she seems to have these motives, especially in some of the music we're given, for destroying humanity, but around her servants or pawns or team or whatever you want to call them, she seems to be not quite, but almost nurturing.
Yeah, like she's affable as far as I know.
Hinder?
Oh, me. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that, like, Salem's a string puller. I love that about a villain. Like, she hones in exactly on the exact parts of every character that they really, really, really dislike about themselves or want to see done. Like, we can see in a single scene there's Cinder, and she's, like, struggling to do more and more fire stuff. Like, she's struggling to keep up the effort. And Salem homes straight in on the I thought you wanted to be powerful thing. Like, she takes the motivation of Cinder and just, like, shoves it in her face and just says, this is what you want, now do it. And with Tyrion, when he comes back, she isn't angry. She doesn't, like, say anything to him. She just says that, like, she basically just gives him, I'm disappointed. And you can see that hits him so hard, right? And you can tell that that's something core to his being. He wants to impress her. Like, she is important. Like, he does the whole whimper, scamper away thing. She 100% understands what motivates the people underneath her, and she will use it. And the whole nurturing thing is definitely a front.
It's a front.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, she comes across as being as being this kind of nurturing character, but of course she would be. Who doesn't want their henchman to be as strong as possible and as devious and as powerful, without of course being more powerful and devious than you? And as long as she's got hold of those strings, as long as she's got hold of these motivations, they can't turn back on her. She's got these leashes for them, and that's the most interesting thing about Salem for me.
May?
What? I guess I agree with everyone else. I was honestly not paying attention. I was looking through the RWBY ship chart and.
Oh God!
God damn it, Ray!
No,
All right.
I was looking at all the names and I was.
All right, so.
Can I just say that the ship names, this community, oh my God, you guys are fantastic. Like, the ship names are just so good.
Absolutely on point. Like, some of the more basic ones, like Bumblebee and White Rose, like, yeah, whatever, those are cop-outs, but, like, Dogs of War, that just makes me happy on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I got one. Considering Weiss's status, would you say that another name for White Rose could be 1% milk?
God damn it.
Like, can we just, like, okay, can we just have, like, a whole podcast dedicated to, like, ship names?
What, and just rating them and just being like,
Just
okay, can we make
from,
it
like,
punnier?
1 to 10, and just,
perhaps.
like, because, like, as far as I know, Hinder is, like, the god of puns.
Yeah.
Pun god. Pun daddy.
I'm his apprentice.
Yeah. I feel
it's
like
not conscious, and I don't make a choice. It's very painful for me.
you have a problem.
I have
Ray-
a very,
Ray-
it's a very, it's a sickness, and I'm down with it. But it's still a sickness.
But oh shit! I just remembered. So a while back I sort of brought up, but not really. A lot of people feel that the world of remnants, which we've gotten a lot of in the past 2 seasons, are really only used to supplement the show's writing because they're unable to fit them in, or like unable to write them in. And I don't know. Like, I do like the information that the world of remnants give us, but I could also see where it would be hard to fit that in. What do you guys think?
To be honest, here's the thing. When you remember the World of Remnant of Nicholas Schnee, right?
Somewhat,
Yes.
while I think the information made absolutely fantastic, considering that the first Schnee to make the Schnee company was not an absolute dick. Considering that fact, it may have been more intriguing had. It may have been more interesting had Weiss brought it up, like she did bring it up, and just left that hanging there. Like she mentioned that Jacques was married into it.
Yeah, like show don't tell, basically.
I mean,
Like,
everyone
that
that writes,
it would've
gets
been-
taught that.
But
There's also the issue of the fact that the episodes are only as long as they are.
and
Like,
that's
of course, you should show don't tell. Like everyone knows that, but it's not always how it works out. In my opinion, that's just how it didn't work.
and that's a lot, and that brings me to one of the core issues we hear about RWBY consistently. RWBY the show, not RWBY the character, by the way. Is that it's runtime. It's a very constricted runtime, and what are we at now? 13 minutes? Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And on a 13-minute, because everybody wants something different out of the show. Some people want, and we all want these things to a certain degree, but some people want more emphasis on world building. Some people want them to develop the plot more. Some people, because they feel the plot is too generic. Some people want character development. Some people just want action. And it's so hard for them to do that, because if you fit all those things into a 13-minute episode, you're not going to do well on any of them. And that's where the show becomes weak, and that's why we have so many issues with the show. But at the same time, we do have this catch-22, because as we all know, it's not exactly the smallest team ever, but the RWBY team is fairly small and underfunded, and if they were to extend the episode length, they would need more funding, and they would need more people, more animators, more voice actors, perhaps even, because the scope of the show would grow. And what would you guys prefer? Would you rather, because it may not even be a possibility at this point, would you rather Rooster Teeth try to expand the show's time without increasing its current team size and potentially give us a show that's not as strong? Or would you rather it confine the show continuously to this 13-minute runtime and perhaps not give us everything we want?
Either way, extending or not, we all have to remember that even though the show has gotten popular, it's still a web series.
Of course.
And if it wants to grow more, it can do that, but either way, it has to remain consistent as a web series, no matter how good the quality may be, which, by God, the quality itself is fantastic.
Yeah, obviously, you're not going to see RWBY one day playing on TV.
The important part for me is scalability. Like, sure, they can make the episodes longer if they want to. They can put them up to 30 minutes, and I'd be the happiest bloke on the planet, maybe. But the problem is, right, the amount of scaling that requires is probably more than I can comprehend. Like you said, it's going to require more animators. Like you said, it's going to require more time. It's going to require a bigger team. It's going to require more money. And that's complicated. It's complicated. It's complicated to hold together a team that big. And there are things that Rooster Teeth has never done. Right? They've probably never, ever managed a team like they are right now. And they certainly haven't managed a team that size. And frankly speaking, if they were to do it to make it 30 minutes now, what I can see that being is we wait. Like, we already go nuts during hiatus. Let's be honest with each other. We all want to tear each other into pieces and talk about cold baked potatoes. But basically speaking, we'd be waiting forever for the series to come out. And at the moment, the series is coming out. I'm enjoying it. I don't want to touch the thing that I enjoy. I don't want to say, make it longer, make it faster, make it shine, make it scream when I stab it. Like, just give me what you're doing right now. It's good. I enjoy it. And if you're going to improve it, do it right.
And May, what do you think?
What?
Oh, god damn it.
Okay, I feel that, regardless of whether this show, decides to, like, expand itself, I'm still going to support it regardless, you know? And I'm still going to, like, buy the DVDs, buy, like, the merchandise, you know? Like, I think the best thing that we can do at this point in time is support them.
Yeah, of course. Because if Rooster Teeth doesn't give the team the funding they need or the attention they need, well, at that point it's up to the fans. And we have noticed this because the show has grown considerably in fan base. I remember I came in at about, I think I came in somewhere around the end of Volume 2 or the hiatus between 2 and 3. And I remember when the fanfiction... Yeah, it's alright. I remember when the fanfiction archive for RWBY was something like, I don't know, below 2K. And now it's like almost breaking 20K at this point. And it's absolutely ridiculous how much the show has grown. And I'm so happy to see that because there's more community and there's more chances to talk about. And certainly you do get more bad eggs in that community. But it becomes so much more entertaining and it's something to bond over. And it's something that's absolutely has increased in quality. And that brings me to like one of my last points, because we gotta wrap this up because Jesus, we've been at this for over an hour now, is what would you all like to see from the show moving forward?
I'll wait for the others to answer what I think.
Well, May just left, so I guess it boils down...
Oh yeah, May had an appointment, if I recall correctly. We probably just overran based on that.
I think it would be nice if currently at season 4 they stick with the characters that they have right now, rather than introduce more characters to forward the plot. Because with all the characters they have right now, they have so much potential for the plot for more plot progression at the moment. But to be honest, what I really want is I want to see like Hazel kicking ass or something.
Yeah, of course. Like, who doesn't want more of a big, buff guy just absolutely tearing everybody up?
Yeah, it definitely gets me going. But
wow, that sounded extremely like I wanted to watch gay porn.
But I've got two answers. I've got a silly answer and a serious answer. I'll start with the silly. My silly answer would be I'd really like to see Gira and Tai Yang tear the shit out of Adam. I'd really like to see Adam beaten to death by the two fathers. When like Ty's like, you cut off my daughter's arm, and like Gira's like, you stabbed my daughter, and he's just like, shit. As we watch like the two probably best hand-to-hand combatants like beat the crap out of the edgelord that is Adam. I would have very, 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 very much enjoyed seeing that. And then I guess my serious answer is I want to see the bad guys win again before we see the good guys win. I want to see Witch take the artifact from within Beacon, and I want to see the artifact from within I can't remember the name of the
Haven.
I think it's Shade. Haven, thank you, Haven. I want to see a artifact duel between like one of the members of Witch and Oscar, both with one of the artifacts. I want to see them duke it out. I want to see Haven laid to waste. I want to see Mistral flattened by the force of these things, so that we can really understand the threat that they really sort of impose. But
absolutely. Yeah. And
that's what I want to see.
Moving forward, honest to God, it's so, because as you all know, like, I'm a very not judgy person. To me, honest to God, what I just want from the show moving forward is I just want more. I want to know more about every single character. I want more of this. It's sort of stereotypical, but at the same time, it has its own spin. I want more of this plot. I want more of the world. I just want more of it, you know? And whether or not they develop the characters in the direction I'm expecting or the direction I'm wanting or the plot in the direction I'm expecting or wanting, I'll still stick with it because that's kind of our duty. Like, we've gotten ourselves into this thing and we really like it, and whether we like how it ends, or where it goes or not, it's sort of something we've committed to at this point, you know?
I'd definitely like to see more world building, kind of just like some explaining of some of the more basic elements of how aura works, for example, or how some other, like some of the other like vital elements of the world. Would really flesh those out, because we've been tearing each other new asshole trying to figure it out. Like, what's the deal, man?
God damn it, Rooster Teeth, let me write my fanfiction. I can't write fanfiction when I don't understand how this shit works.
My thoughts exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. As a fan fiction writer, it's a pain in the ass to just be like, okay. Also, I'd really like to know what the deal with the moon is. Can we just address the giant hole in the sky?
I think it was always like that. I think it was always like that.
I mean, Yeah,
getting
but I still
worse.
feel like there's a story.
Well, wouldn't the fractured moon reform itself because it would, like, you know, gravity,
Gravity?
and stuff?
You'd think it would be fractured but whole, but yeah, like...
Hey!
Hey.
In any case, we've just hit almost 1 hour and 15 minutes, so,
We forgot to mention one character that we have never talked about throughout the entire thing right now. Ilya.
Oh, yes.
Chameleon girl, yes.
Yeah, of course, we were introduced to Ilya in Volume 4, and
In Volume 4.
personally, I mean, we know that Blake knows her at this point, but
Mm-hmm.
her overall importance to the plot, I feel like it's either going to be not great, or it's going to be, like, something that Rooster Teeth shoehorns in. Kind of like Coffee, Team Coffee, because nothing wrong with the characters themselves, but they did steal screen time that they could have used for RWBY, and while they are badass, overall they don't
here's
serve
the
a
thing.
purpose.
I feel like Ilya will have a much more important role because Coffee was there because Velvet, because people wanted to know what the rest of Velvet's team was, but Ilya was a completely new factor that came out of nowhere, and I feel like she'll have a more important role in the next volume or the one after.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just because of the way she's introduced, it's implied that she's going to be more important to the plot. Anyway, that's about all we have for today, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Yeah, hi, Fair.
Oh my god.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Hinder, thank you, Roach, and thank you, May, for when you might listen to this later. And that's it.